I'm about to say something that will definitely make some people angry. Modern men are becoming weaker in a way no one dares to admit. Look around you. Hardworking men, disciplined men, men with goals, most of them are quietly drowning in frustration and confusion. You work out, you make money, you try to become the best version of yourself, yet you still feel not enough. You follow every rule society gave you, and somehow you still end up overlooked, dismissed, treated like an optional extra in your own life. So, here's the real question we need to confront. Why is it that the harder a man tries, the more invisible he becomes? Maybe you've been there too, sitting alone in a dark room, feeling like your life is a phone running on low battery, 10%, then 5%, then 1%, and no one bothers plugging you in. You give your energy, your time, your patience, only to be met with a cold silence that makes you ask, where did I go wrong? Here's the harsh truth. This isn't just a personal struggle. This is a systemic crisis where men are taught how to be useful, but never taught how to be valuable. We're expected to endure, sacrifice, and stay silent, yet criticized when we're tired, vulnerable, or when we dare ask for something in return. This video won't comfort you. It won't sugarcoat anything. I will break down the issue directly, honestly, and in a way that might make some people uncomfortable, but that's exactly what needs to happen. If you're a man and you want to reclaim your power, understand yourself more deeply, and break free from the illusions draining you every day, watch this video until the very end. And if you want a place where men can finally talk about the truth without judgment, without cliches, hit subscribe now. Men are taught that to be attractive, you need money, a good body, a nice car, designer clothes, and technical confidence. You must tick all the alpha male boxes: financial investment, self-development, charming communication, learning pickup lines. Then women will fall for you. That's the unspoken promise sold by society, dating coaches, and countless How to Be a Real Man courses. But here's a truth you don't want to hear, and the people selling the success dream don't want to say. Those things don't create deep obsession in women. You can have it all, and still be categorized in a woman's mind as, he's okay, a temporary option, nice to date, not to fall for. Because the issue isn't your achievements. The issue is your internal power. You think you're attractive because of your fat wallet? Try walking into a room with a man who has nothing except calm eyes and inner-rooted confidence. He's not trying to impress. He's not flexing. He's just present. And then you'll see. Women are drawn to him. Not because of what he has, but because of who he is. Society pushes a broken model into men's heads. If you're good enough, women will love you. But that belief traps you in an endless loop. You keep upgrading yourself, but never feel enough. You keep trying to impress, not realizing that this very effort is the signal that you lack internal value. You don't see that the more you try, the more you destroy the mystery, the only thing that makes people curious about you. We live in an era where everything is measured by image. Instagram, fancy cars, luxury watches, lifestyle videos. But ironically, the brighter the spotlight on this perfect life, the emptier women feel after meeting these men, because the spotlight doesn't warm emotions. And obsession doesn't come from what you show off, but from what you don't need to prove. Internal power, the calm, the groundedness, the absence of need for external validation, is the kind of energy that makes women feel deeply connected without knowing why. It doesn't scream, it doesn't manipulate, it just exists. And sadly, very few men today possess it, because they're too busy posturing to be accepted. You think women want successful men? Wrong. They want a man who knows who he is and doesn't need anyone to remind him. Women don't get addicted to your achievements. They get addicted to your internal state. The energy you emit when you're not trying at all. They're not drawn to the car you drive, the house you live in, or the titles on your business card. They're drawn to what you can't fake: your energy, the way you walk into a room, the way you look at them without needing approval, the way you're silent without being uncomfortable. All of that says one thing: I know who I am, and I don't need you to confirm it. What attracts women most deeply is not success, it's presence. A man who is truly present, unhurried, undistracted, uncalculated is so rare, it feels almost like luxury. In a world where men are constantly performing, the man who simply sits still and listens becomes the one women want to stay with. Not because of what he says, but because he doesn't need to say much. His energy already speaks volumes. Inner peace? That's a magnet. A man who doesn't get pulled into drama, who doesn't overreact, who doesn't need to do anything to feel valuable. He becomes a landmark of safety in a woman's mind. She gets addicted to that feeling, like a starving person finding a hot meal. He doesn't chase her. He doesn't withdraw. He stands still, and that's exactly what makes her move toward him. Unconditional confidence is something you can't buy. It doesn't come from muscles or degrees. It comes from knowing, I'm enough right now, without proving it. When you carry that energy, you don't need game. You don't need tricks. You just need to be you, and that drives people wild with curiosity. Women have an emotional radar, sharper than you can imagine. In the first few seconds, they categorize you, above me or below me. This isn't about social status, it's about energy. The above guy is the one who challenges them, draws them in. The below guy is the one they feel they can control, and therefore lose interest in. Ironically, the harder a man tries to be above, the more he appears below, because trying is a signal of lacking inner value. If you need her to validate your worth, you've just been categorized. If you seek attention, recognition, or positive feedback, you've revealed your energetic gap. Women don't need to be taught to sense this, they feel it. And when they feel you lack inner grounding, they pull back. Not because you're ugly or weak, but because you're leaning on them to feel valuable. That kills attraction completely. On the other hand, the man who doesn't need her but can choose her drives her mad. Not because he's playing games, but because he's not dependent. He has a full life. He knows how to fill himself. And if she enters his world, it's a choice, not a need. That's what makes her addicted. Not how strong you are, but whether you need her. And if the answer is, no, but I still want you here, that's a language her heart can't resist. Here's a truth that stings for many men. Your sexual market value, SMV, doesn't lie in your money, muscles, or looks. It lies in perception. More precisely, it lies in how women perceive your energy. A broke guy, driving a beat-up car, wearing a worn-out shirt but who carries steady eyes and speaks with unforced confidence, can silence a room full of women. Meanwhile, a millionaire in a $5,000 suit, lacking presence and character, fades into the background. Men often mistake SMV as something measurable: how much you earn, how tall you are, how many abs you have. But women don't use calculators. They use intuition. And their intuition reads the invisible energy you radiate, how you walk into a room, how you handle rejection, how you look them in the eye without needing anything. That's your real value. SMV, more accurately, is a psychological game. You can have all the on-paper qualities, but if you don't believe you're worthy, a woman will sense it first. And conversely, if all you have is quiet inner belief, she will feel that too. This is why some unlikely men, unremarkable, broke, average-looking, have women chasing them. They possess an internal sense of value no school or book ever taught you. It's the deep self-awareness, self-acceptance, and alignment with personal truth that doesn't need to be shown off. And it's also why many high-value men CEOs, gym models, successful entrepreneurs get ghosted by women they thought were in the bag. Because they're selling an outer shell, achievements, lifestyle, reputation, but lack the grounded core that women trust and get obsessed with. Value doesn't lie in material things, it lies in your mindset. A man with a strong mindset, even if his bank account is in the red, can generate a gravitational pull no money can replicate. Because women don't fall for what you have. They fall for what you believe you're worthy of, without needing to prove it every second. When you walk into a room and don't need to be noticed, you're the most magnetic one there. When you're not afraid of rejection, others fear losing you. When you're unattached to outcomes, outcomes attach to you. That's the paradoxical logic of energy, and it's the only thing women truly feel. If you believe you have to be more to be loved, you've already lost. Because that means you're telling yourself, I'm not enough yet. And that message will leak through your eyes, your tone, your vibe, no matter how polished you look. But if you know, I am enough. I'm not perfect, but I don't need to be anyone else to be worthy of love. You step into another frequency, one where you don't compete for attention. You attract it by not needing it. And here's the final truth of this section. She doesn't fall for your wallet, she falls for your heart when you're not hiding it behind your success. And she becomes addicted not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Preselection, the fact that a man is desired by other women, is one of the most powerful, addictive triggers in female psychology. But most men completely misunderstand it. They think preselection means showing off, flirting with other women in front of her, or listing a long history of exes and admirers. And by doing that, they silently destroy their own attraction. Because showing off sends one clear message: I'm trying to prove my worth. And a man who needs to prove his worth is a man who doesn't truly believe it. True preselection is not in surface behavior. It lives in the energy of a man who has options but is not desperate. It's the calmness of a man who doesn't need to be chosen because he knows he always has choices. He doesn't rush. He doesn't chase. He doesn't trade self-respect for attention. And that very lack of urgency is what makes a woman start to wonder, why doesn't he compete? Why doesn't he try to impress anyone? That question is the seed of obsession. A man with real preselection doesn't need to flirt with multiple women. Women can feel that he has options. It shows in his non-dependent gaze, in his unhurried posture, in the way he doesn't shapeshift just to please one person. He doesn't fight the world, but he also doesn't bow to it. He stands in that balanced place where women cannot control him, but also cannot ignore him. Women are not attracted to how many people want you. They are attracted to the fact that you don't need any of them to feel valuable. When you don't need, you become rare. When you don't cling, you become irreplaceable. When you're not desperate, you become the man women fear losing. Desperation has a smell. It rises from long unanswered messages, from waiting online for replies, from lowering your standards just to stay in someone's life. And women detect that scent faster than any creature alive, not because they are cruel, but because they are wired to avoid weak energy. Not to punish you, but to protect themselves from being pulled down with you. In contrast, the man who truly has options doesn't need anyone to see it in order to believe it. He wakes up each day with a meaningful life. He has work, he has direction, he has boundaries. And women enter his world as an addition, not as the center. That's exactly why they feel chosen, not because he needs them, but because he already has everything and still chooses them. That is the most addictive feeling for a woman, being chosen by a man who doesn't need to choose. Being with a man whose life continues stable, full, unbroken, even if she walks away. But if she stays, she earns a place in that world as a valued choice, not as an emotional lifeline. Pre-selection is not a tactic. It is the natural result of internal power. When you build a life strong enough that you don't have to beg for affection, you automatically enter a field of attraction without effort. And at that point, women won't chase you because of what you say. They chase you because of what you don't have to say. Seeking validation is the death spiral that most men fall into without realizing it. It starts subtly. You want a compliment. You wait for a message. You crave a bit of attention. You tell yourself it's normal. Everyone wants to be acknowledged. But slowly, bit by bit, you begin tying your self-worth to other people's reactions. She replies, fast today, you feel okay. She goes silent tomorrow, you feel less. And just like that, your mood, your confidence, even your self-respect are no longer in your hands. They're in someone else's. That's when your attraction begins to die. A man who needs compliments to feel valuable is a man who doesn't truly believe in himself. A man who needs messages to feel important is a man who has handed his worth over to the world. And a man who needs attention to feel real is a man who has unknowingly turned into an emotional beggar. Women don't lose interest because you want to be loved. They lose interest because you need them in order to believe you are lovable. When you need, you become weak. And when you become weak, your energy changes. You start analyzing every small signal. A scene icon is enough to send your heart racing or sinking. A short reply can keep you up all night overthinking. You stop living in the present. You live in waiting mode. And waiting is the energy of a man who doesn't have choices. The most attractive man is not the one who gets praised the most. He is the one who doesn't need praise to stand tall. He doesn't reject validation, but he doesn't live off it either. When he's praised, he smiles. When he's criticized, he doesn't collapse. Because his value is built from the inside, not from other people's mouths. Women feel this difference instantly. A self-validating man enters relationships with the mindset, I choose you. A validation-seeking man enters with the mindset, please choose me. And nothing kills attraction faster than the posture of begging to be chosen. You can dress better, speak smoother, learn more social techniques, but if deep inside you still crave validation, all of it is just thin makeup over a large insecurity. Women are not fooled by that surface layer. They may not understand it logically, but their bodies feel it. And a woman's body always trusts feeling more than words. The self-validating man is not cold, arrogant, or heartless. He still loves, still cares, still shows warmth. But he doesn't trade himself to keep someone. He doesn't beg to be loved. He doesn't sacrifice his boundaries to purchase someone's presence. He gives from fullness, not from emptiness. And here is the greatest paradox. When you stop needing validation, you receive it the most. When you stop craving attention, you become the center of it. When you stop needing others to confirm your worth, the world starts treating you like a man who has worth. The death spiral of validation ends the day you look into the mirror and say, I am enough, even if no one applauds. From that day forward, you step out of the role of the one who waits and into the role of the one who is chosen. Not because you are above others, but because you no longer need to win in order to feel worthy. There's a kind of man women become addicted to not because of his words, not because of his money, not even because of his looks, but because of his presence. He is truly there. Not the kind of presence where his body is in the room, but his mind is elsewhere, worrying about the next call, tomorrow's plans, or what line to say to impress. No, he is fully present, whole, grounded in the moment. He may sit in silence, say very little, but she feels deeply heard, seen, and emotionally touched. This kind of presence is not loud or flashy. It is a quiet energy that women feel the moment you walk into a room. It comes from groundedness and unshakable inner stability. You're not living in the past or projecting into the future. You're not obsessed with outcomes. You're not calculating your next move to score points. You're just there, simple, complete, without trying. And that lack of effort creates the strongest pull. Women are addicted to men who are comfortable with silence. Because most men fear silence. They find it awkward, empty, even threatening. They rush to fill it with words, jokes, gestures. But true silence held by a grounded man is the safest space for a woman's emotions to emerge. She feels no pressure, no judgment, no manipulation. She gets to be herself. And when she can be herself, she starts to bond. Grounded men don't care what you think of them. They don't need to win every conversation. They aren't afraid of uncertainty. They are there like a rock, unmoved by praise or criticism, heat or coldness. And because of that, they create a sense of safety, a rare feeling in today's anxious world. And women, emotional beings by nature, become addicted to that feeling. Society doesn't teach men to be confident. It teaches men to chase achievements, then promises that confidence will follow. Make money, and you'll be confident. Get a ripped body, and you'll be confident. Get promoted, and you'll feel confident. So men enter a never-ending race, trying to find confidence through things that exist outside of themselves. They sweat in gyms, grind at work, sacrifice time, youth, and sometimes even their integrity, only to face a painful truth. That kind of confidence is fragile, because it's conditional confidence. It depends on whether your abs still show. It depends on how many zeros are in your bank account. It depends on whether others recognize you or not. And anything that depends on the external can be taken away. That's why so many outwardly successful men are still deeply insecure. If you need something to feel enough, then you'll never truly be enough. The moment you lose it or even fear losing it, that fragile confidence crumbles. On the other hand, true confidence doesn't come from accomplishments. It comes from self-acceptance. When you can look at yourself with all your flaws, failures, and imperfections, and still say, "I'm worthy." When you no longer need to become someone else or achieve something to feel valuable, that's when you become unshakable. Society programs men to believe they must become something to be loved. But women and the world aren't addicted to what you achieve. They're addicted to the energy of a man who radically accepts himself. A man like that doesn't need to prove anything. He just shows up. And that's the root of true confidence, the kind that cannot be taken away. The moment you place sex at the top of your priorities is the exact moment you hand all your power over to the woman in front of you. From that second on, your happiness is no longer yours. It rests in her decision. If she agrees, you feel worthy. If she rejects you, you feel worthless. And that's the most dangerous form of dependence a man can impose on himself. It's not because sex is bad. It's because when sex becomes the destination, you start distorting yourself to reach it. You say what you think she wants to hear. You behave in ways you think she'll approve of. You swallow your truth, hide your boundaries, sacrifice your standards just to stay in the game. And while you believe you're chasing pleasure, what you're actually losing is the very attraction that makes you a valuable man. A man whose happiness depends on whether a woman sleeps with him is a man who has already placed himself below her in the dynamic. He enters with the mindset of asking to be accepted, asking to be chosen, asking to be rewarded. And the moment you step into any relationship with a begging posture, you are no longer standing as an equal. You've already discounted your own worth before she ever could. Here's the paradox. When a man no longer centers his life around sex, he becomes the most attractive version of himself. When you genuinely care about connection, emotion, and alignment, not just momentary gratification, you reclaim your power. You no longer need to perform. You no longer need to chase. You no longer fear loss. And it is that lack of fear that makes women fear losing you. A truly strong man is not the one who conquers the most women. He is the one who is not controlled by his own urges. He may desire, but he does not depend. He may crave, but he does not trade himself for it. He understands that sex is part of connection, not the measurement of his worth. When your happiness no longer sits in someone else's hands, you begin to walk as a free man, and only then do women see in you what they have always unconsciously searched for. A man who doesn't need to be held onto yet is incredibly hard to walk away from. Here's a paradox few men dare to embrace. Sometimes the most attractive thing you can do in a woman's eyes is to say no to sex. Not because you don't want it, but because you don't need it. And that lack of need hits her psychology harder than any compliment ever could. Society has conditioned men to believe that if the opportunity arises, you must take it. Refusing sex is stupid. Anyone who says no is either weak or scared. But the truth is, a man who dares to refuse sex because he's not in a rush, because he has standards, because he wants deeper connection first, that's the man who leaves women confused, curious, and deeply drawn in. Turning down sex in a world where most men would jump at it regardless of red flags is a statement of worth. It says you have options. It says you're not starving. It says you are not ruled by lust. And most importantly, it tells her she can't control you with her body. She can't puppet you through seduction. And that's exactly when she begins craving your attention more, because she can't easily manipulate it. Saying no is not a mind game. It's not a strategy to play hard to get. It's a reflection of true self-control. It means you're calm enough to wait for the right moment, instead of getting swept up in desire. You're clear-headed enough to ask whether this is a real connection or just an impulsive reaction. And that level of clarity, that calm restraint, is rare and irresistible. A man who isn't controlled by his desire is a man who makes women feel safe physically and emotionally. Because if you can control yourself, you won't try to control or pressure anyone else. You don't need to prove your masculinity through instinct. You prove it through your ability to choose and restrain. And when you're strong enough to walk away from something you could easily have, you become the kind of man a woman can't stop thinking about. The ultimate goal is not to make women addicted to you. It's to become a man with inner peace and let women get addicted to that energy. Inner peace doesn't mean meditating for 3 hours a day or disappearing into the woods. Inner peace means you are no longer shaken by people's opinions, no longer chasing validation, no longer performing to meet society's expectations. You know who you are. You live by your own values and standards, whether others approve or not. And that this unshakable calm, this internal freedom, this mental stillness is what makes you naturally attractive. Women aren't addicted to men who try to impress them. They're addicted to men who don't try to impress anyone, yet still can't be ignored. They are drawn to the man who walks into a room without saying a word, yet his energy speaks volumes. When you stop seeking validation from women, you don't just become more attractive, you become free. You don't need anyone to like you to feel worthy. You don't need a relationship to feel complete. You don't need sex to feel like a man. Those things may come or not, but your value stays steady. Modern society creates too many successful but empty men because they chase an image instead of building solid identity from within. But the man who is truly dangerous in the best way is the one who needs nothing to feel valuable. And ironically, it's that needing nothing that makes him have everything. Not through tactics, not through game, but through a way of being. a rare, real, grounded state that commands attention and that women simply can't ignore. You can keep living as a programmed copy, chasing society's standards, trying to impress, trying to please, trying to become the man others expect you to be. But if you've made it this far, I believe something inside you is awakening. A raw, powerful, original part of you, long buried, but always there, waiting to be lived. Stop handing over your power to others' opinions. Stop trading your identity for approval. And stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to feel enough. You are already enough the moment you face the truth and begin the journey back to your true self. If this video sparked something inside you, hit subscribe, because Decoding Women isn't a channel about pickup tips. It's a place where we decode the female mind so you can become a man of true substance. Comment below, share how this hit you, and if you're ready, type these 3 words, "I am ready," to mark the moment you stop living as a victim and start living as a man of value.